Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who we're so thrilled is with us. Luke will come right back to you. We're so thrilled to get to turn over the stage to you, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz. And we want to remind folks who are with all of us in DC last year, you can see that Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz is here front and center, right where she should be, holding the sign, Mom should be your top special interest. And we think that you still might have that sign in your office in DC, which we love and are so thrilled that you're with us today, Congresswoman. So we're going to turn it over to you and are just grateful for your time. Thank you. Oh, and it looks like we just need to get your line unmuted.
Okay, I think I'm good now.
There we go. Yes.
Not used 7 different thousand kinds of platforms during the COVID-19 crisis. Not this one yet. So first time for everything. In fact, I'm in my office, so I'm in. Given that moms kind of have to just make do. Forgive me for my very unattractive background. That's my craft bin from when I was a Girl Scout leader for my girls, and it just isn't the best background, but my husband isn't home to reattach my tripod so that I can talk to you in the nicer setting. So forgive me. I had to take that with me to DC and just got back. So anyway, good afternoon, everyone. It is really so great to be here with Mom Congress. This organization was an organization that I was so happy to learn existed, quite frankly. And I remember Joy and Crystal coming to the end really of your event, your DC fly-in, and that picture really captured all of our like the emotion of our bonding really. I was last, but it was almost neat that I was last because it gave me so much more time with you, and we had a chance to talk. And I mentioned then, and I'll talk about this now, is that when I was first elected to Congress, I was really one of just a handful of moms with young children, and so connecting with moms professionally for me has really been so important. I mean, especially knowing that you want the feeling that you're not alone, because you can really feel very isolated. Particularly in different kinds of different places of work where, sometimes it's not so easy for women to talk to one another about those challenges, particularly in competitive environments. And layer on top of that, the challenging environments and the times that we are living in now, for women and families with young children and moms, we're living through an unprecedented situation. This pandemic has brought on challenges beyond the normal ones that we live, balancing work and family every day, both unexpected and expected. But for women and mothers, it is particularly dire. In the past few weeks, as I said, I've been on lots of platforms on these calls, and I'm sure many of you have questions about what Congress is doing to help women and families during these challenging times. I want to take a minute to give you an overview and an explanation of how Congress is putting women and mothers first, but really do it through a mom lens. But first, let me just briefly mention, and you can see our logo below me, I want to briefly mention a bit about the caucus that I formed with my colleagues and what brought me here today. As women, as we're often discouraged from taking the risks and making the bold moves necessary to break barriers. Men, that's a sign of strength, taking risks and being bold and being ambitious. All of those things are leadership qualities in men. In us, we are, we've got our claws out. They use the B word, you name it, and nothing positive about assertiveness is attached to women or mothers. And really, that's in no small part because women are still heavily underrepresented in leadership positions, both in government offices and in businesses. But we have gained ground, which is fantastic. We now have a record high of 127 women in Congress. 28 of us are mothers of school-age children. As a member who, as I said, was one of the only women to have young children when I first entered Congress, and by the way, I gave birth to all 3 of my kids on the last day of the legislative session, or near the last day of the legislative session, 9 months pregnant, when I was in the state legislature. But since I have been one of the only, the onlys. I really thought it was so important for me that we create a space and a community to support all the moms with young children in Congress and share the unique challenges that we face. Really create a mom sisterhood in Congress, because there's only 435 of us and only 28 of us that are living this while raising our kids. And so we started what is affectionately known as the Moms in the House Caucus. And while we have more women than ever before in Congress, we needed a distinct space to get together and share our challenges, our concerns, our celebrations. And so far, it's really been an incredible success. It's just good to know that there are other women who are dealing with the same things. And we had a whole lot of new women members, whose kids are younger than mine. My twins are 21 now, and my youngest daughter is 16. And so I'm in a different stage of mothering than a lot of the women who have actually really young kids. So it's just important that we are able to be there for one another. And I know that in this virtual room that we're in right now, many of you are women and mothers with bold visions. And I also know that for many of us right now, advocacy can feel challenging. I mean, try to add that to the list too. My God. Sometimes, I don't even get my clothes on. I ran upstairs and put this T-shirt on. I was lucky that I could find the T-shirt. So we have to remember that when we have the power of collective voices, our work is easier. And so we have to utilize and celebrate the collective voice in these unprecedented times. And I know that at Mom Congress, you talk about the burdens of the mother load. And that's something that all of us have been coping with during COVID-19. The working moms that are lucky enough to have avoided the virus or recovered from it are juggling jobs and childcare with an intensity that has not existed in modern times. Many moms with young children are homeschooling while working. I cannot even imagine having to homeschool my kids on top of everything else. My youngest daughter is definitely beyond me in math, so I can be of no help to her. But the whole issue of preparing lunches while working, they might be policing screen time while working and dealing with the waves of guilt and stress or resignation that come with not doing any of those things or feeling like you're not doing any of those things particularly well. For me personally, being at home for this long, for the first time in 15 years with my 3 children and my husband, and quite frankly, I'm coming up to about the longest time I've spent at home with my husband in our entire marriage. It's actually been kind of nice to learn that it wasn't just that we're together because absence makes the heart grow fonder. Turns out we do like each other, so that was a good revelation. And yesterday was actually my twins' 21st birthday. And I had to miss it to vote on the HEROES Act, but that's an important part of my job, and using my voice to uplift the voices of moms all over the country is so critical. It's actually the first time that I've missed their birthday in their whole life. Been there for every one of them, somehow worked it out all these years, and the last 2 was with one or the other of them, but not both. So we're going to celebrate tonight, so all good, but this is a group that would understand and can relate to my sorrow over that. I did FaceTime with them for their first drink, so that was the first legal drink. Let's be real. But your children's birthdays are just never something a mom wants to miss, and we have to make sacrifices as working moms. That's just the way it is. And with people who are sick, unemployed, and dying, casting that vote and using my voice was the very least I could do. And I know that I'm so fortunate, and for many other moms, things are far, far worse. I even was, we have like our little mom group text chain, and I was explaining that I was so sad that I had to miss their birthday, but I also hashtagged it first world problems, because having just come from a food distribution where I'm even seeing cars that are quite a bit nicer than the type of car you'd expect someone to drive up in who is in need of food. Missing my kid's birthday, not the most important thing on planet Earth. While people are struggling. So we're currently in what the New York Times is coining a she session, as opposed to recession. This is the first time since 1948 that the female unemployment rate has reached double digits. And what this tells us is that no matter what their circumstance, mothers in this country are struggling. And as we know, women, especially women of color, are on the front lines of the COVID-19 crisis. Women are 85% of home health care and personal aides, 93% of child care workers, 66% of the grocery store cashiers and salespeople. All those jobs require millions of women to risk exposure every day just to keep our communities healthy and safe. And that's why it's critical that our second coronavirus package, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, extended paid sick leave and paid emergency leave for parents to care for themselves and their child without fearing losing their job. And our most recent legislation that passed the House yesterday, the HEROES Act, expands workers' ability to use paid sick days and paid leave and ends the exemption for employers with more than 500 employees. Because women should not be forced to choose between their next paycheck and their children. And in many industries, women are on the front lines of those losing their jobs. A recent survey by the National Women's Law Center found that women are twice as likely as men to have been laid off during the COVID-19 pandemic. Women, and especially women of color, are also overrepresented in the low-paid service economy that is getting slammed with layoffs right now. And with many of these jobs paying $12 an hour or less, they are left with little cushion to fall back on. And that's why it's vital that our third package, the CARES Act, provided direct payments to individuals and families. It expanded unemployment insurance, and it increased small business loans to support women and families. And the HEROES Act extends UI and includes another round of direct payments to those who need them most. With more than 22 million working families across the country, our nation's economic recovery in the aftermath of this crisis will depend on a system that is able to bounce back. Mothers and families cannot carry the load themselves, and that's why it's vital that we support our child care system, those who care for and educate the next generation while making it possible for today's parents to earn a living. And I'm happy to say that both the CARES Act and the HEROES Act included a number of provisions that provide initial support for child care, like more funding for the Child Care and Development Block Grant and for Head Start. Millions of families depend on child care every day. I know that I did from the first time I stepped my foot out the door to go back to work after I gave birth to all three of my kids. And as moms, you know that a comprehensive and robust response to counter the cascading effects of COVID-19 is essential. Before I close, I just want to say one thing. And I try to always mention this when I'm speaking to groups of women, but particularly mothers. We are really good at taking care of everyone but ourselves. We think of everyone first before we think of ourselves. But we are good to no one if we are not healthy. So make sure that you are paying attention to the public health guidelines. Make sure that you are staying home if you can and staying safe. We all have to really understand that we don't have a vaccine for this virus yet. We don't have treatment. And despite the reopenings of the economy around the country, we still have to be careful and stay at home as much as possible. So I promise to continue to keep up this fight, help us stay afloat during these precarious times. And fighting for women and families has been and will remain one of my top priorities. So thank you for being such an important part of this discussion and advocating on behalf of moms across this country. Thank you for having my back, because I get to stand on your shoulders knowing that there's an army of moms out there who get it and who understand what Congress needs to be focusing on, especially now that we have more strength in our numbers. Thank you so much, and everyone stay safe and healthy.
I'm going to clap for you on behalf of everyone. We're getting texts and messages that you are saying exactly what we need to hear right now, and we are your army. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing on behalf of all of us, and we're pleased to be your partner. And that term, a she session, is one we all need to start using and really raise awareness around the fact that we're being impacted in disproportionate ways, and it matters. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, thank you. We're looking forward to doing more events with you and Emma on
Absolutely,
your team.
in person and virtually.
Exactly. Let's hope.
Thanks, everyone.
Well,
Take care.
You.
Bye.
Thanks, Debbie.